Parties announcing freebies just ahead of elections. The Supreme Court said that it is this culture which is disincentivizing people from working, and in states like Maharashtra even drying up the labour force. During the hearing of a PIL seeking shelter for the urban homeless in Delhi, the Supreme Court Judge Justice B.R. Gavai not only deprecated the distribution of freebies but also remarked that it would be better if the homeless are sought to be integrated into mainstream society so that they can contribute to the nation and its workforce. Now remember, cash transfer schemes have recently found electoral success in Maharashtra, Jharkhand and Haryana, cementing their role as a staple form of electioneering. The most recent, of course, being Delhi, where all three major political parties like the Bharatiya Janata Party, Aam Aadmi Party and even Congress unveiled a barrage of freebies or subsidies to the electorate. The core challenge in this debate is the absence of a clear consensus on what constitutes a freebie. Some argue that freebies amount to bribery and discourage voters from making informed choices. But many others claim that such a narrative strips voters of their agency and delegitimizes welfare politics. And so to better understand what amounts a freebie and what makes up for a welfare scheme meant for betterment of society, let's also take a quick look at some of the key promises made by political parties, often in the run-up to elections. Now, whether or not these promises are fulfilled or mere words thrown around as confetti to attract voters, that's a debate for another day. But during Maharashtra elections, the BJP promised financial assistance of 2,100 rupees for women on a monthly basis, popularly known as the Ladki Bahin Yojana. The party also promised an increase of 3,000 rupees in its loan waiver policy and a monthly stipend of 10,000 rupees for nearly 10 lakh students. Recently, the defeated Aam Aadmi Party too made a barrage of promises, from monthly assistance of rupees 21,000 for women to, in fact, free electricity up to 200 units and 50% subsidy beyond that. How can one forget the Mohalla clinics and AAP's promise to provide free healthcare in both private and public hospitals? Now remember that 21,000 in fact was promised by the Aam Aadmi Party for pregnant women. AAP too tried to lure the voters with its several promises. Of course, there was a stipend also promised to women on a monthly basis. During Maharashtra elections and Delhi elections both, here's what the Congress brought to the table: financial assistance of 2,500 rupees for women, free electricity up to 300 units per household, even LPG cylinders at the cost of 500 rupees only. The Mamata-led Trinamool Congress has also promised to increase income for labourers and guaranteed 100-day work for job card holders with a daily wage of 400 rupees. TMC has also promised free housing for all poor families and free 10 gas cylinders to below poverty line families per year. And down south, the DMK has promised 4,000 rupees for ration card holders and free tablets for government school students. Now, 10,000 rupees to farmers has been promised only to buy new motors, and 100 rupees as subsidy for cooking gas cylinders. DMK made promises galore in the run-up to Tamil Nadu elections. But are these welfare promises justified or even unwarranted? How viable are these freebies actually? The recent data throws light on the grave situation underneath these states that are battling, almost struggling to balance the weight of these promises. The Congress government in Karnataka promised 5 guarantees in the state, and the Siddaramaiah government has spent almost 63,382 crore rupees so far only on freebies, and currently is facing an outstanding liability of over 7 lakh crore rupees. Himachal Pradesh, another Congress-led state, promised to fulfill 10 guarantees and now faces an outstanding liability of over 1 lakh crore rupees. While no data is available on how much the state has spent on freebies yet, it was not until much recently that the Himachal Bhavan was put on sale, remember, much to the Sukhu government's embarrassment. Let's have a quick look at Telangana, another Congress-led government by Revanth Reddy, which promised 6 guarantees in the state and has so far spent over 53,000 crore rupees only to fulfill its freebie promises, but is currently dealing with an outstanding liability of over 4 lakh crore rupees. So as per the CAG report, Maharashtra's outstanding liabilities stand at over 6 lakh crore rupees, or even 18.73% of its gross state domestic product as of 2023, of which 80% is about 5.32 lakh crore is only public debt. Punjab is reeling under mounting public debt of over 3 crore rupees, constituting 49% of the state's income in 2023 to up to 24. In the current year, the outstanding debt as a percentage of GSDP is in fact projected to be over 44%. Having brought you all of that data, I think I can now safely pose my question from states having to battle financial burden to the Supreme Court's concern of a class of parasites being created. Have doles come to be a disincentive for India? That's the question I'll be opening up for our guests today. And so with that, let me introduce our esteemed panelists today. I'm joined in by Ashpreet Kadyal, who's a spokesperson for the Congress Party, Sumit Chandar, who's a renowned advocate, Shailesh Gandhi, who's also a renowned author. I'm told that BJP's Shazia Ilmi will also be joining in. Many thanks to all of you gentlemen for joining in. Ashpreet, if I may begin with you, how do you assess what the Supreme Court's in fact gone on to say today? Do you think that we are creating a class of parasites? And is this disincentivizing India's workforce?
Number one, it would be really nice if the Bharatiya Janata Party spokesperson, when they join, would start with an apology. Because if freebies to be promised are wrong, how wrong is it to promise it and then not even deliver it? For example, the 15 lakhs that were promised by the Bharatiya Janata Party by Mr. Modi, they haven't even delivered it in the last 10 years. So they should take responsibility for it, should apologize for it, and therefore resign. Number two, 2,500, 21,000, etc. were promised in Delhi election by the Bharatiya Janata Party. Now, the Bharatiya Janata Party should tell us that instead of providing, opportunities, jobs, shelter homes to people, making these promises, and number one, the Bharatiya Janata Party has had to reduce budget of many social welfare schemes, many of them. And number two, the Bharatiya Janata Party needs to answer this thing, that shelter home is a fundamental right as per the Supreme Court. And in the last 10 years, you have not been able to provide shelter homes to the people. And therefore, the Honorable Supreme Court has had to pull them up. And when it was asked to them as to what will you do about it, instead of saying that we'll provide them with opportunities and jobs, etc., the Bharatiya Janata Party said that we'll provide them with facilities.
I'm sure Shazia will be able to respond to all those allegations that have come in, but let's not begin this debate with the tone of attack. Ashpreet, I think what the Supreme Court today has also called for a moment of introspection. Let's not forget that all those states where your party is in fact ruling, whether it is Telangana or whether it is even say Karnataka, we've seen the kind of outstanding liabilities. Himachal, of course, is in the lower order. If you look at the amounts that are the outstanding liabilities, are you even able to promise those guarantees, considering you have such massive amounts?
Well, when the tone of Indians is this, how can I not reflect that? This is the tone of the Indians. Because the people are fed up with what the Bharatiya Janata Party has been promising when it comes to freebies, and they're not even delivering it. Now, first, let's understand why did this go to the Supreme Court? Because the Bharatiya Janata Party could not ensure shelter homes to the people of India despite massive promises. Number two, when the Bharatiya Janata Party is not able to do that, they should also tell, because in the Supreme Court, there was a reference made the somewhat little number of shelter homes that exist, people do not even want to go and live there because they are in a dilapidated state. And on the other hand, the Bharatiya Janata Party's leaders are living in big bungalows, traveling in luxury cars, a fleet of luxury cars.
Ashpreet, why don't you reserve that argument when Shazia actually joins in?
It's not my fault.
All right,
It's
Shazia has just joined in. I've given you
So,
ample time. You've still managed to dodge that question with regards to the outstanding liabilities as far as Telangana, Karnataka and Himachal are concerned. But I'm
the
going to, in
reference
fact, yes, I will
is
come
one
to you.
thing.
Shazia has joined in. Shazia,
In
a
Supreme
host
Court,
of
Maharashtra government was
allegations
talking about,
coming
not
in.
Telangana.
Why couldn't the government at the centre provide, shelter homes to those homeless? Apart from that, of course, there is the biggest allegation that you are the one who is not able to deliver upon the promises that are guaranteed by the party.
A little bit more about how the economy is doing. Why is the fifth largest economy? Very different from it being one of the fragile five to now being the biggest five economies, but he should learn more. We're talking about shelter homes. I would like to tell the Congress spokesperson here that 25 crore poorest of poor Indians were lifted out of abject poverty, multidimensional poverty. Not just that, the scheme we have since COVID till now of the largest free ration in the whole world is still continuing. And not just that, I mean, people have to learn from this, but you have to have a pre-budgetary allocation and understanding of what you need to do. Job, as well as Delhi, which has come into the red, and of course Karnataka, than anything else. I just want to tell you, people will quote Maharashtra, and let me tell you, the fiscal deficit stood at 90,560 crores, which is 2.24 of the GSDP, and which is within the permissible limit of 3% as per the Maharashtra Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act. So, but if you look at now, Punjab is 49.3 is the debt, and it's a 47,000 crore in the past year and a half.
All right,
so the outstanding debt
question.
hovers around 50% of its GDP. You look at Karnataka and look at the inflation, look at the prices of milk, and see how they've gone back on 5 of the big poll promises, and why they have now decided not to give free bus rides and taken away some of the freebies.
Well, absolutely, and for that, in fact, that is our second topic of discussion.
They could not have money.
That is what we are discussing in the second debate as well. Because, remember, it is the Congress in Karnataka which is now blaming the previous government for not having, hiked the rates as far as metro fare since 2017 is concerned. Ashpreet, please go ahead.
Thank you. See, number one, in court, when the freebies were referred to, the first reference that came from the court was of Ladli Behan. Number two, then freebies that were promised in Maharashtra, the Honorable Justice referred to it that because of the freebies that were promised just before the election, agriculturists do not have laborers. And how much the economy is suffering because of that, we can all see it. Number two, the Delhi Bharatiya Janata Party had made promises of 2,500, 21,000, etc. After that, an ex-judge filed a case in the Delhi High Court, and that freebies amount to corruption. And then it was referred to the Honorable Supreme Court. So the problems for the Bharatiya Janata Party are really going to rise. The most important question here is, what's the stand of centre? Will they stand in favour of freebies in court, or will they stand against it? Because if they say, yes, we'll stand against the freebies, why in the last 10 years have you not brought about a law in order to do away with them? Because you're the one who has the power.
Shazia, I think that's a valid question, because it was Prime Minister back in the year 2022 who himself had condemned the Revdi culture. The whole term Revdi was coined by him.
So you think taking 25 crore people out of multidimensional poverty, or adding 16 crore people to the workforce in the organized sector, you think that is a sort of a freebie? I think that's a basic, and whether it's providing water or housing, poor affordable housing for the poor, do you think that is a freebie? I think that is a basic right to life and livelihood that the government finally is making good on. And if it really was so bad, the economy would have been in a shambles. And you're talking about, when it comes to all the world economies, we've contained inflation rather well. There has been fiscal prudence with which we have worked since COVID. And despite a black swan event like COVID, we've managed to stay clear and stay afloat.
All right, let's hear what Arshpreet has to say. Arshpreet.
The question here is, what will be the stand of the Bharatiya Janata Party in the Supreme Court? Will you stand in favor of freebies or against? Just tell us that.
No, because we're not totally idiotic, and so it's not a yes or no. What is a freebie is what we are talking about. There has to be, you have to be there for the people and fulfill the promises. You have to, instead of other governments which have been completely mired in corruption and have had such a huge fiscal deficit and have really had the biggest scams or NPAs. It is our government that has put the economy in order.
Right. I think that's a very valid point that you are making.
Providing drinking water.
No, I want to bring in Sumit.
I want to
15 lakhs is not a
complete, don't
but Arshpreet, I'm sure you cannot deny that fiscal deficit has been a challenge to the Indian economy, which is why I want to also bring in Sumit Chandra on that note. Sumit, the Supreme Court bench has also requested the Attorney General to in fact find out and verify from the centre in terms of how soon will the Urban Poverty Alleviation Mission achieve its goal. But I want to ask you, can it even achieve its goals if, election after election, states after states keep making those free promises? How do we ensure that poverty will actually be alleviated? Because you ensure, as the Supreme Court highlighted, are we disincentivizing, in fact, people from entering the workforce?
The Akanksha, I think Supreme Court here, and let us understand this very clearly, both the learned spokesperson of parties, various political parties have made their points very clear and very intelligently so. But the question before Supreme Court today is about the corrupt practices, whether these freebies will amount to corrupt practices under Section 123 of the Representation of People's Act. That is the interpretation of law which will go on, and accordingly, the rest of the things will be decided. Now, what does Section 123 of the Representation of People's Act say? It says that any gift or promise of any gratification, either by the candidate or by the agent on his consent, to any elector to vote or refrain from voting in an election will amount to corrupt practices under Section 123 of the Representation of People's Act. Now, this matter was taken up in 1996 before in Ramchandra Kapse case, and then again in 2013 in the Subramaniam Balaji case, where now the Supreme Court is revisiting what was held in the Subramaniam Balaji case. At that time in 2013, the Supreme Court had held that the pre-election promise does not actually amount to corrupt practices under Section 123 of the Representation of People's Act. Okay. Constitution, what the Supreme Court said was that Constitution provides for various checks and balances. It's not that today a political party in a particular state says, I'm going to provide you, and after elections it would come into existence. There's a due process before a scheme can be implemented in law. It has to be passed as long as the scheme comes within the realm of public purpose by passing suitable appropriation bills. It will not be a corrupt practices. If any party, any opposition has any problem with that freebies being passed by virtue of a public practices, and when it comes in the parliament, it can be duly opposed at that stage. Supreme Court is only now going to clarify the judgment of the Subramaniam Balaji case, whether what exactly will amount to corrupt practices as defined under Section 123 of the Representation of People's Act. What freebies are being given today, are they defined anywhere? That is what is going to be taken up.
I want to take that point from the fact that, we also have Shailesh Gandhi over there. I want to take it from Shailesh Gandhi. Is there also an ambiguity in the definition of what amounts to a freebie that is currently being taken undue advantage of by various political parties as far as election time is concerned? Because remember, Mr. Gandhi, I think the Supreme Court has also questioned what amounts to welfareism versus what is freebies, because remember, welfareism is not new to our country. We've seen how children stand to benefit from midday meals. That was a welfare scheme. Similarly, many are saying that even cash transfers to women will only mitigate the risk of domestic violence, because eventually they will have spending power in their hands.
We built a fantastic narrative. What is given to the poor is subsidy, freebies and revdi. What is given to the rich are incentives. We have built a narrative like this in the entire country on all discussions. If 12 lakh crores of loans are written off of the rich, that's an incentive that's required for industrial growth. On the other hand, what is given to the poor is a subsidy, incentive, freebies. It is the state's responsibility to ensure that everybody has a life of dignity and is reasonably fed, gets education and healthcare. The state is not able to do that. And therefore, it is promising these freebies. I concede if it is able to guarantee a minimum wage and ensure that people are given jobs. And on employment, just one point I'd like to point out on employment. Everybody is talking of employment deficiencies. Nobody admits the fact that all governments, almost all governments across the country, have 20 to 30% vacancies of sanctioned jobs. And this leads to poor governance because not enough people are provided. In the country where employment provision should be priority one, it has been relegated to a, 10th, 15th, 20th stage. This needs to change. The Supreme Court has also, I think, said that people should be provided employment, should get methods of earning money. And as far as shelter is concerned, there is a proposal to ensure that shelter is provided to everybody, and a detailed scheme has been made up for Mumbai city. But these shelters should not be given as ownership, they should be given only as tenancies. If this is done, it's very easy to solve problem of slums and jhopadis. But nobody has the will to do that. Also, a simple suggestion, why doesn't agricultural income attract income tax at least over 20 lakh rupees per year, 30 lakh rupees per year? It's an uncomfortable question for all political parties. It's not done because it is enjoyed by...
I quickly want to bring in Shazia on that note. Shazia, because when the BJP started making promises, it was seen as a discernible shift in the party's own stance, and that currently is also coming under question. At the same time, you have the likes of Prashant Bhushan, who also argued that various governments are only working for the rich and that nobody stands for the rights of the have-nots, to which, of course, he also got an earful from the justice over there. But I'd still like your thoughts.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, in terms of multidimensional poverty, there has been a huge difference. 16%, 16 crores have been added to the workforce, and it's actually now more than 25 crores who've been lifted out of poverty. But if I were to compare unemployment, as somebody was mentioning, so if you look at the percentage of total labor force and you were to compare 10 years of UPA and 10 years of NDA, you will find that 6.38 is a percentage of unemployed in BJP rule as compared to 8.22. So this is, and I'm giving you figures. This is the World Bank figures, and in terms of whether it's boosting health or working with infrastructure or providing water, there is a huge difference. And in fact, for the first time, a government is working for.
All right, I want to quickly give time.
So if you look at the economy report card, you will find.
About 5 trillion economy and sabka saath.
Kansha?
All right, Arshpreet, quickly.
Thank you. The Bharatiya Janata Party is saying that the question here is, what is a freebie? I mean, it does not take an aeronautical engineer to know that 15 lakhs, 2500, etc. is a freebie. And if it comes to defining it, you've had 10 years to do that, you have not defined it. You've had 10 years to regulate freebies, you have not done that. So let's give up the double standards. I request the Bharatiya Janata Party, and the Supreme Court pulled you up when the Maharashtra government did not have money to compensate people but had money for freebies. The Supreme Court pulled you up.
I want quick closing thoughts from Shazia on those allegations that are being hurled. Keep in mind, Shazia, that it was Ashwini Upadhyay from the BJP back in 2022 who had knocked the doors of the Supreme Court, asking them to in fact challenge the constitutional validity of freebies themselves.
So as an individual, and I don't know whether he made that PIL, for which the court has answered as a member of BJP. And the fact of the matter is, there are a lot of people who feel this way, but you should be able to differentiate between welfarism basic socialism that is needed for India's poor, and also to ensure that middle class has something that they can save an extra money in their pockets, so they can propel the economy further by further spending, which is also needed.
You do not even
So there are a number of
Sumit Chandar, quick closing thoughts. Do you think that there's been a lack of judicial oversight, because Supreme Court also in 2022 had said that no political party will ever discuss the freebie debate because it works in their favor? So that's why they had in fact requested that a panel be formed with the likes of people and members from Law Commission, even the Niti Aayog, the RBI, to only look into this entire matter, but nothing has moved forward.
True. Akanksha, I think to summarize it, I would say the only thing that needs to now get clarified, any freebie in the matter of a manifesto which is being stated by any political party, if it is for the public purpose, whether it defines within the public purpose, then the constitution also supports you. And Article 41 says that the states are within its economic capacity to develop and provide these to secure the rights of work and education and public assistance to the people. But if it is not for a public purpose and then it is a simple freebie, that should be stopped and will come within the definition of corrupt practice.
I'm afraid I'm running short of time, so I'll have to leave it at that. We all know that, in fact, the question that we are also going to leave you with, that are in fact politicians even concerned about the practicality of these freebies, or are they more concerned about winning those votes and that power from the electorate? And with that, we are slipping into a quick break. But in what one could assume to be a possible fallout of the freebies, the Karnataka government has hiked the metro fare in Bengaluru. They claim that the fare hike wasn't their move, but the centre's decision. We'll tell you all about it on the other side. Stay tuned to Plain Speak.
Giving me the shakedown. We're looking through it, and I have the picture of you and my mom.
Everybody knows Mark. He's become a very famous guy. He's a very happy guy tonight.
I feel like the luckiest man on earth right now. And I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero. These men that came from the diplomatic service are heroes. And I am so indebted to, and I also should make mention that President Putin was very generous and statesmanlike in granting me a pardon. I mean...
What were the terms of this deal, Mr. President?
Very fair, very fair, very reasonable. Not like deals you've seen over the years. They were very fair. And I think that's going to lead, and somebody else is being released tomorrow that you will know of. But we wanted to get this done, very important. And Steve wanted to actually fly over and get Mark and get him home properly, because it could be a pretty tough trip.
So is this the beginning of a deal, sir? Is this the start of
I think there's goodwill in terms of the war. You know, 1.5 million soldiers, young people have been killed.
I've met many of them.
Yeah, and it's a terrible thing going on, so we want to get that done. I think this could be the very important element. You could be a big part of it, actually, because it could be a big, important part of getting the war over with Ukraine. And we appreciate President Putin's what what he did. He was able to pull it off for you, right? He was able to pull it off. And we think, and you're here. I'm here. So
Eric still coming tomorrow, or are you waiting until you need to vote?
we'll see what happens.
Have you spoken with President Xi?
Your pictures in it, and as they were, giving me the shakedown, we're looking through it, and I have the picture of you and my mom.
Everybody knows Mark. He's become a very famous guy. He's a very happy guy tonight.
I feel like the luckiest man on earth right now. And I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero. These men that came from the diplomatic service are heroes. And I am so indebted to, and I also should make mention that President Putin was very generous and statesmanlike in granting me a pardon. I mean,
What were the terms of this deal, Mr. President?
Very
Welcome back. The Bangalore Metro Rail Corporation has increased the metro fare by up to 50% last week following the recommendations of the Fare Fixation Committee. Effective from 9th of February, the hike has drawn criticism from the public and opposition leaders. It has also made the Bengaluru Metro the most expensive public transportation system in India. Following the revision, the lowest fare remained at 10 rupees, while the maximum fare was increased from 60 to 90 rupees. Additionally, the minimum balance required on smart cards has also been increased from 50 to 90 rupees. The sharp increase in metro fare prices has sparked widespread outrage and almost immediately decreased footfall. The number has witnessed a 4% decline to 8.29 lakh passengers this on Monday itself. Remember, this follows a recent hike in bus fares implemented by the Karnataka government, which increased ticket prices by 15% across all 4 state-run transport corporations, this from 5th of January. So with this hike in the fare, Bengaluru Metro has become the most expensive transport system in India. Let's break down the metro fares across metropolitan cities to better understand. Like I said, the minimum fare in Bengaluru Metro is 10 rupees, while the maximum is 90. As a result of the move, there has been a 6% fall in ridership. Now, in Mumbai, the minimum fare in the metro is 10 rupees, while the maximum is 90. As of 2024, the average daily ridership for the Mumbai Metro was 4,47,000 passengers. In Delhi, the minimum fare in the metro is 10 rupees, while the maximum is 60 rupees. The Delhi Metro has even carried over 78.67 lakh passengers on a single day in November 2024, marking an all-time high. The minimum fare in Lucknow Metro is also 10 rupees, while the maximum is 40. The Lucknow Metro has an average daily ridership of around 87,000 passengers. The minimum fare in Kolkata is 5 rupees, while the maximum is 50. In Jaipur, the minimum fare in the metro is rupees 10, while the maximum is 30. While the minimum fare in Kochi Metro is 10 rupees, the maximum is 60. But the metro fare isn't the only thing that has been hiked. We will go back to this story. Let's quickly cut across, in fact, to France, where we are getting in visuals of Prime Minister's departure. He should now be leaving after a momentous visit that the Indian Prime Minister has had in France over a period of 3 days. In fact, he's inspecting the Guard of Honor. Let's listen.
ये दृश्य आप देख रहे हैं फ्रांस के मार्सेई से जहां
All right, let's quickly go across to Siddhant Mishra, who's joining me live from Marseille, as Prime Minister is all set to leave from France as he heads towards Washington, D.C. for that very crucial meet with the US President. Let's quickly go across to Siddhant. Siddhant, give us a roundup of how momentous and historic this visit has been for India and France bilateral relationship.
Well, this visit has really been very historic. And in fact, as we have been saying since morning, that under President Macron and Prime Minister Modi, the relationship has touched new heights. And the biggest takeaway, Akanksha, of this visit of Prime Minister Modi is extensive discussion on the IMAC project. Perhaps something which was announced.
Sorry to interrupt you there, Siddhant. I'll have to take our viewers through those visuals. Prime Minister, in fact, sharing a bear hug with the French President over there. It seems like an emotional farewell, and Prime Minister, in fact, looking very somber, happy, I must say. And in fact, the French President also waving off to the Indian Prime Minister. One has, in fact, been witnessing that bonhomie for years now. Remember, France is one of those nations which is invited the most at our Republic Days as well. I go back to Siddhant, who continues to stay with us. Yes, Siddhant, please go on. All right, we'll try and reconnect with Siddhant, but those live visuals coming in from Marseille, and as we all know, that Prime Minister has had a historic visit where we've seen our bilateral relationship also grow strength to strength in areas of also AI, and not just AI, even defense. We've seen how the Indian Prime Minister, in fact, India has pitched for France also to purchase defense equipment from India as well. A visit that began with the Indian Prime Minister, in fact, co-chairing the AI Action Summit in Paris, has now culminated in Prime Minister's tribute to those fallen Indian soldiers at the War Memorial in Marseille, and also led to the inauguration of the Indian consulate in Marseille. And we all know that Prime Minister also visited the ITER, which was again a very significant visit. Remember, as far as India and France are concerned, they are all now working towards securing the energy needs as well, which remains high on the agenda as well. That ITER facility was visited by Prime Minister during the visit. The leaders appreciated the progress of ITER that included assembling of world's largest tokamak, which is in fact the power hub of fusion power. And it was not just as far as the ITER is concerned. We also know that Prime Minister was part of that tribute that was paid at the War Memorial to the fallen Indian soldiers. Now, upon landing in Marseille, we know Prime Minister also paid a tribute to Veer Savarkar, and Prime Minister over there inspecting the Guard of Honor. And so, to give you a roundup of the key takeaways from that meeting between the French President and Indian Prime Minister, we know that India and France are building a framework to ensure there is greater conception, design and development of AI, and there has of course been critical focus on development of free and open resource for all countries, innovation as well. India and France are also intending to pursue and expand the bilateral cooperation, also to foster industrial partnerships, research partnerships. Siddhant is back with us. Siddhant, please go ahead, share your insights.
Well, yeah, so biggest takeaway, if we talk about this particular visit of Prime Minister Modi, then it was AI, artificial intelligence, as Prime Minister Modi co-chaired the Action Summit with President Macron, and in fact, Prime Minister also announced that next year AI Action Summit will be hosted by India. That was kind of a big announcement, and Prime Minister for the first time unveiled India's vision, India's program for artificial intelligence. The second one, as I was pointing out, is the discussion on IMAC corridor. This project was announced during G20, after which the conflict broke out in the Middle East. The project got delayed. There were no mention of the project, and since now the ceasefire has been announced in the Middle East, this is for the second time that India has discussed IMAC project extensively with any other country. Before this, India has signed some agreements with UAE, and now France. With France, we heard how Prime Minister Modi and President Macron had in-depth conversation on the IMAC project, the number of ports that are required, how goods and commerce will move from one side to the other side, etc., etc. The third, obviously, is defense cooperation. Prime Minister Modi wants France Army to look into the Pinaka missile of India, made in India Pinaka missile. Perhaps that's something which we are hearing for the first time. And before this, since 1960s, India has been buying defense equipment from France, from Mirage to Rafale. This is for the first time that India has pitched for Pinaka missile to France. So that is again a significant component of this visit of Prime Minister Modi. Other than this, Prime Minister visited ITER, which is again a thermonuclear experimental reactor. India is a part of that since 2006, and he is perhaps the first head of state.
It's interesting that you mentioned ITER, Siddhant, because civil nuclear energy has also been a very significant component of this bilateral meet. Take us through the kind of MOUs and the list of outcomes that have been achieved through Prime Minister's visit.
That's right, Akanksha. In fact, there have been 3 MOUs that have been signed in civil nuclear energy domain. In fact, last time around also, Akanksha, when both leaders met in the joint declaration, there was mention of cooperation to develop a small advanced modular reactor. This time around, MOUs have been signed for the same. So it's again a big achievement. And France has always been partners with India when it comes to nuclear energy. Even in 1982, when India required nuclear fuel, when the US refused to give nuclear fuel to India, it was France which stepped in. 1998, France was the only country which did not impose sanctions on India after the nuclear test. France was the first country to sign civil nuclear deal with India. So there has been a history of collaboration, cooperation with France when it comes to civil nuclear energy. But this time around, fusion energy was perhaps also the focus, Akanksha, which we were talking about. ITER is a thermonuclear experimental reactor. Both France and India are working on it. In fact, there are a lot of Indian engineers and workers currently working on that project. So that was also a very important component of Prime Minister Modi's visit. And obviously, people-to-people ties. A new consulate has been announced in Marseille, which is perhaps really significant, Akanksha, because I spoke to many people from the Indian community. They have been traveling to Paris, 700, 800 kilometers for a visa-related issue. So now, it's a big relief for all of them.
And when you look at the defense gains currently, both countries stand to gain from this partnership. Remember, in fact, we have also been made aware that India will also be gaining 3 more Scorpion-class hunter-killer submarines from France, and France, on the other hand, has shown interest in the Pinaka multi-barrel rocket launcher, as was being shared by you as well. So take us through the kind of progress that's been made on the defense front.
That's right. Submarines, as far as Scorpion-class submarines are concerned, Akanksha, these 2 deals have been in the pipeline for quite some time. 26 Rafale jets and Scorpion submarine. But during this visit of Prime Minister, Rafale jets couldn't find place in the joint statement. Perhaps there was no mention of 26 Rafale jets for Navy. But Scorpion class submarine, development of 3 Scorpion class submarine with France, indigenous submarines to be constructed in India, perhaps finds mention in the joint statement.
Many thanks to you, Siddhant, for bringing us all those extensive inputs. We hope you had a joyous stay over there in France. Siddhant Mishra, in fact, bringing us all those latest inputs from Marseille. Let me quickly go across to Ambassador Sajanhar, who's joining me live on the broadcast. Good to have you back, Ambassador Sajanhar. In fact, heartwarming visuals of that farewell being bid by the French President to the Indian Prime Minister. In retrospect, how do you see this entire visit, which spanned over a period of 3 days for Prime Minister Modi?
Yeah, thank you very much, Akansha, for having me on the show. Yeah, I think as far as the visit is concerned, in addition to the substantive, substantive is very, very important. But I think it's also mentioned that, the trust between people, trust between leaders, and, the sort of images that we see for President Macron to come to the airport to see off Prime Minister Modi, I think that is very, very unusual, very, very rare and quite unique. So I think the whole atmosphere, like both the leaders holding hands, embracing each other, giving each other hugs, I think that really speaks. And for the French president to offer his aircraft to fly along with Prime Minister Modi from Paris to Marseille. I think all these are reflections of the very close understanding and very close confidence and trust between the two leaders. And I think that in addition to, what you've been talking with Siddhant, Akansha, as far as nuclear energy is concerned, as far as defense is concerned, as far as the significance and relevance of the Consulate General in Marseille is concerned, all those are at, at their own place. Yes. Very significant indeed. But also is significant the fact that in this turbulent world, when there is so much of flux, when there is so much of change and uncertainty, in that time, for these two countries, for these two leaders, for these two major powers to have this sort of an understanding. And I think this understanding, Akansha, was also reflected in the AI summit, because, the fact that Prime Minister Modi is, invited as the co-host of of the AI summit, and then India will be hosting the next summit.
And in fact, he was the one sharing the dais with the host nation and with several other world leaders like the EU President, the German Chancellor, the Canadian Prime Minister, the Chinese Vice Premier, all in attendance over there looking at the Indian Prime Minister co-chair the AI summit. But having said that, how do you assess our defense procurement, not to forget the contribution that both the countries will be making to the AI race? But what does primarily India now stand to gain? I will also deep dive into that symbolic gesture of the Indian Prime Minister and the French President at the War Memorial as well, which also alludes to our time-tested historic ties. But first, let's also look at what India stands to gain from this visit.
Yeah, as far as defense is concerned, we have been heavily dependent first on the Soviet Union and then on the Russian Federation. Over the last, couple of years, ever since the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, we see that the supplies and the spares from Russia have not been coming in a timely manner. As far as the S-400 is concerned, you know that we had to get these 5 batteries. We have just got 2 of them. The others have been delayed, and particularly because Russia is engaged in manufacturing all that it needs for its own war effort, rather than to cater to our needs and our requirements.
All right.
We in any case, Akansha, had started looking out for the last 10-15 years that we wanted to diversify, an important aspect like defense, not put all the eggs in one basket. So in that context, France had emerged as the second or the third largest defense supplier to India. And we have found that, whether it is the Rafales now or it is the Jaguar or the
Right.
Mirage, they have stood us in very good stead.
All right, and that's why I'm running short of time, Ambassador. I quickly want to touch upon the last point that I want to make right now. Do you think that Donald Trump is going to be watching this bilateral relationship very closely, given that all those countries like Canada, who have in fact been threatened by tariffs, have looked towards France? India is also fortifying this relationship. In the larger geopolitical scheme of things, before the Prime Minister embarks on that visit to the United States, how do you place this visit?
Okay, I'll keep my fingers crossed, continue to keep my fingers crossed. I do hope that Mr. Trump is looking at this and he's taking, that there are some takeaways for him from this. I cannot be certain because I think within the first month, 2 months, what we've seen, whether his pronouncements on the multilateral scene, whether his pronouncements on Ukraine or on Gaza as to how he's going to take over. He's been engaging with the Jordanian king, with the Egyptian president. So I think his attention is very much there and attention is fully, on himself. So I would hope so. But even if it is not, I'm sure that when Prime Minister Modi meets him,
the US
he'll be
President
able
can
to
also borrow a lesson from time-tested loyalties which India and France have both displayed. I'll have to leave the discussion over there. Many thanks to you, Ambassador Sajjanhar, for joining in. And thank you to all our viewers for watching Trade Speak. Up next is The Right Stand with Anand Narasimhan.
Co-powered by Namaste, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. I'm Anand Narasimhan and we are coming to you from Bengaluru. Well, Bengaluru's number metro has turned into one of the most expensive public transit systems in Bharat after witnessing a steep increase in its fares in February, which has drawn criticism from various people. A lot of the metro stations this morning were quite empty. Days ago, the Bangalore Metro Rail Corporation or BMRC took the decision to increase the metro fare. Now, after the revision in fare, the minimum fare stood at 10 rupees, while the maximum fare that was revised from 60 rupees to 90 rupees. So it's more than Mumbai and Delhi now. There is almost a 50% increase in the maximum fare. This steep rise in the price of metro fares has also led to public uproar and also saw a decline in the footfall on a very busy Monday. Like I said, I witnessed there were hardly many people travelling by metro this Monday. But there was also a 4% decrease in ridership and it spilled over into this Tuesday too, with 8.29 lakh passengers. Amid reports of lower than usual crowds at stations inside metros, some commuters also took to social media to share that they opted for private vehicles because of the increased fares. So this trend continues into midweek. The metro fares have not been revised in Bengaluru since 2017. The BMRCL took the initiative of writing to the union government and appealed to them to revise the fares. In response to the BMRCL's letter, a Fare Fixation Committee was constituted by the union government under Justice R. Tharani, retired Justice R. Tharani, a former Madras High Court judge. The committee had representatives of both the state and the union governments. The committee was given a 3-month deadline by the union government to submit revised fare prices. They visited Delhi, Chennai metro authorities and consulted with BMRCL officials regarding the fare structures. The fare structures of other metros were reviewed by the committee, which included Mumbai, Delhi and of course Chennai. In Mumbai metro, the minimum fare stands at 10 rupees and the maximum is at 80 rupees. In Delhi, the metro fare presently ranges between 10 rupees to 60 rupees. So that makes Bengaluru the most expensive. Meanwhile, there has also become a political fight on this entire thing, with the centre blaming the state blaming the centre, BJP versus Congress, with Tejasvi Surya, the Bengaluru South MP, voicing opposition to the recent Bengaluru Metro fare hike during the 0 hour in Parliament, highlighting its impact on the middle class. He argued that this surge had made Bengaluru Metro the most expensive metro network in the country, defeating its original goal of offering an affordable and sustainable public transport option. Siddaramaiah, meanwhile, has said, the Chief Minister of Karnataka has said in a statement, and I quote, the same BJP leaders who take credit for Bengaluru Metro's expansion as the centre's achievement are now shifting the blame onto the Karnataka government when there is public anger over the fare hike. This is nothing but self-deception and hypocrisy. But BJP MP PC Mohan has taken to X and stated the steep hikes under the Karnataka Congress government since 2023. He's shown how property registration fees are up by 600%, property guidance values by 30%, vehicle registration by 10%, hospital services by 5%, state-run colleges by 10%, Bengaluru Metro fares by 50%, electric vehicle tax by 10%, electricity tariffs by 14.5%, water tariffs by 30%, property tax by 25%, seed prices by 60%, beer prices by 45%, milk prices by 15%, bus fares by 15%. Is there anything left that can be increased, whose prices can be increased, is a question that comes to mind when you see such posts. Let's go across to our guests and ask them, who's to blame? Why is this happening? Priya Chetty Rajagopal, activist, joining us, Bhaskar Rao, spokesperson of the Karnataka BJP with us, and Syed Asad Abbas, political analyst.